Soyez venus aussi nombreux parce que c'est un honneur pour nous et un grand plaisir d'accueillir Nicolas Winding Refn. Je vous demande de l'applaudir. Alors, je ne vais pas le présenter, je ne vais pas présenter sa filmographie parce que j'ai l'impression qu'ici tout le monde la connaît. Nicolas vient ici pour nous présenter un objet, un livre, qui s'appelle L'art du regard et qui rassemble sa collection personnelle d'affiches de films. So Nicolas, maybe you could tell us about this heavy thing. I hardly, yes, it's difficult to hold.
All right, yes. Are you going to translate, or does everyone understand English?
No, I'm going to translate, and
okay,
we're going to switch my this one is more powerful.
All right. Well, I like to collect things, and
Il aime collecter,
and
yeah.
So about 5 years ago, a friend of mine, a writer who used to work on Times Square in New York, which was called the Deuce, which was the famous area for extreme cinema, whether it was pornography or violence or anything obscure coming out of Europe.
Il y a 5 années cela, un ami à lui de New York qui aime les endroits un peu, on va dire, interlopes, quoi, voilà, de New York, qui s'appelle Alan
Jimmy, my friend was called Jimmy McDonough, who used to work in the 70s and 80s on Times Square, and he was one of the creators of the first fanzine about exploitation movies called Sleazoid Express.
Voilà, c'était son ami qui s'appelle Jimmy McDonough.
Jimmy McDonough is an American writer who has done a lot of biographies, amongst them Ross Meyer, Annie Milligan, Tammy Wyatt, Neil Young. He's a very good American writer.
Donc il a fait des fanzines, mais c'est aussi un écrivain. C'est un écrivain américain célèbre.
Well, 5 years ago he asked if I wanted to buy his poster collection, and my reaction was not really. But after a long time he convinced me to do it, and so I paid him $10,000 because I knew he needed the money. And about 8 weeks later, 1,000 posters arrived at my house.
Donc il m'a proposé sa collection d'affiches. Au départ j'ai refusé parce que j'en avais pas envie. Il a fini par me convaincre et il m'a demandé $10,000 et j'ai acheté cette collection.
And not really knowing what to do with all this because it takes a lot of space, and I'm married to a feminist, so when she saw that all the posters were of half naked women being whipped, she got very, very angry.
Donc voilà, tous ces posters, ça prend énormément de place, d'autant plus que je suis marié à une femme qui est très féministe, et voir des posters avec des femmes qui se font fouetter, tout ça, bon, elle ne comprenait pas très bien.
I was basically going to take all the posters and put it in the basement and throw away the key. But as I was going through, actually Ryan Gosling was in Copenhagen visiting us, and we were going through all the boxes together. And there were some incredible campaigns for films that I've never heard of. And we later on found out that they didn't exist anymore as films either.
Donc j'ai mis toutes ces affiches dans ma cave, je voulais jeter la clé, et puis un jour Ryan Gosling est passé à Copenhague et on faisait la tour de ces caves et voilà, j'ai redécouvert, non, j'ai pas redécouvert ce poster, j'ai oublié.
And so I decided that instead of just putting it in the basement, I wanted to make a poster book, like because all these films were like a time machine into an era that doesn't exist anymore, that we write a lot about, but we know very little about because there are very few artifacts from that era, because most of it's gone, because most of the films are gone.
Donc il s'agissait d'affiches de films très, très rares, dont certains films avaient totalement disparu, quoi, dont on ne connaissait pas l'existence presque.
But so I went to a British publisher and I said, I want to make the most expensive poster book ever produced.
Je suis allé chez un éditeur anglais et je lui ai dit je veux faire le livre de poster de film le plus cher qui soit.
And you know, and he was like, what was going to be in the poster book, because you know, and I said,
qu'est-ce qu'il allait avoir dans ce livre?
well, the idea was I wanted to make the most expensive poster book ever made, and it was going to be with posters from films no one's ever heard of.
Donc, je lui ai dit, donc, ça sera le livre le plus cher sur des posters, sur des affiches de films, sur des films dont personne n'a entendu parler. Voilà.
And he said, well, it will cost you $100,000.
Et il m'a dit, bah, ça va vous coûter $100,000.
And I said, what will I get? And he said, you'll get 4,000 copies, and I ended up doing 2,500 in English and 1,000 in French, but it would cost me $100,000 to produce the book.
Donc en échange, voilà, j'aurais 4,000 copies dispatchées entre la France et l'Angleterre et les États-Unis. Et voilà, en échange de mes $100,000.
And so I said, okay, I'll pay for it.
Je paye pour ça.
But I didn't have the money, so
il n'avait pas l'argent.
While they were making the book, I was able to go to Texas and shoot a car commercial for Lincoln with Matthew McConaughey. And the money that I made on that car commercial, I used basically to finance the book.
Donc il n'avait pas d'argent et donc il était en train de faire une publicité au Texas avec Matthew McConaughey. Et donc l'argent qu'il a gagné pour faire cette pub a servi pour payer ce
So hence,
you're a mécène.
Yes, and my wife doesn't know how much money I've spent on the book yet, so please don't tweet anything as of now, I just tell her.
Donc sa femme ne sait pas le montant d'argent qu'il a dépensé pour ce livre, donc ne tweetez pas cette information pour ne pas qu'elle apprenne.
So that's the book.
Voilà l'histoire du livre. Des questions, parce qu'on n'a pas énormément de temps, donc profitez-en peut-être pour poser des questions directement à Nicolas, si vous en avez, parce qu'on fera la dédicace vers l'entrée, donc voilà, profitez-en. Levez la main. Oui.
How was the process of editing the book in France?
Well, I was able to team up with Manuel Shi, who distributes my films, and Institut Lumière, who I don't think they saw what was going to be in the book until it was too late. And then editing the book was just like putting a movie together, which is like what image and what poster could be interesting to go in what order. The most difficult thing was tracking down information about the films, because most of the films don't exist. So we really had to do a lot of research, and that's where Alan Jones came in as the writer of the text for the book.
Ouais, il y a eu un gros travail d'édition, d'agencer ces affiches, et pour la plupart, les films n'existaient plus, donc il y a eu un gros travail de recherche de ces films-là, et c'est là qu'Alan Jones intervient pour faire, c'est lui qui écrit, c'est le petit descriptif là, que vous avez à chaque page. Other questions?
Hi, thank you for your... je vais dire la question. Dans ces affiches, toute votre collection est représentée, ou y a-t-il des affiches que vous auriez aimé mettre et que vous n'avez pas pu mettre dans le bouquin?
All the posters you wanted, you like are in this book, or some posters are not here for you?
Well, it wasn't so much what I liked and liked. I just had this vast amount of posters around me. So I just basically went through it to see what I thought could be interesting to put in a book. I was even able to find what they would call illegal posters. Back in the 60s, for example, when projectionists would sell prints illegally to each other, they would have to make their own posters for the films that they were being screened illegally. And I was able to find a few hand-painted posters from the 60s of films like Repulsion, and there's one of a Hammer horror movie and so forth. And they were quite unique because they hadn't seen the daylight for like 50 years.
Oui, c'était pas tant la question de savoir si je mettais ça que j'aimais ou j'aimais pas. C'était une collection, donc c'est vraiment l'ensemble de cette collection qui est représentée avec des choses très très rares, des affiches qui sont peintes, qui sont faites voilà, qui sont peintes, qui sont dessinées, et c'était vraiment la rareté voilà. Je pense que Nicolas c'est un collectionneur avant tout.
Hi, I heard that you shot your next film in 60 frames per second, and I wanted to know if it was true and why, and if you already had a cut for it. Thank you.
Sur le prochain film qui a été tourné en 60 images secondes, donc est-ce que voilà.
Well, this is why I love the internet, because I have no idea where that came from.
Donc c'est pour ça qu'il adore Internet, parce qu'il n'a aucune idée d'où ça vient cette rumeur.
But someone did show me that a picture of the clapboard where it said 68 frames per second had kind of been leaked on the internet. It was just because I did a scene in slow motion. You know, that was all it was, but now it became this big thing that I shot a movie in whatever, 20,000K. It's just, but I love the myth, you know.
Donc il adore cette rumeur, ce mythe, mais non, voilà.
But the movie is almost done, it'll be ready next year.
What's the title?
The Neon Demon.
The Neon Demon.
And it's only with women and Keanu Reeves.
Un prochain film avec seulement des femmes et Keanu Reeves.
Hi, I was wondering, we heard a lot about it, but in France we didn't have the possibilities to see your wife's documentary about Only God Forgives, so do you think one day it will be able to come out in France?
Well, the distributor is standing right over there, so just have to
Donc on n'a pas vu le documentaire qui a été tourné par sa femme sur Only God Forgives, parce que ça avait été édité, et donc Nicolas nous renvoyait au distributeur qui est juste là derrière, qui se cache. Non, qui ne se cache pas même le conseil.
Juste que c'est bientôt.
C'est bientôt, voilà.
I guess sometimes later in the year.
I read that when you were 14, you saw the Potemkine massacre, it was a shock for you.
Yeah.
It's early. Il a vu Massacre à tronçonneuse à 14 ans, et c'est ce qu'il a un peu... voilà, ça l'a marqué. Pour faire du cinéma. À this moment, you decided that you wanted to do it.
Well, it was the first time that I saw art was, you know, filmmaking was an art form. So, up until then, you know, I grew up with parents who thought the French New Wave was like the greatest thing ever made, and I thought it was shit. And so when I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that to me is when I saw film as an art form. But it was probably because it was the only way to make my mother really angry.
Et donc il a vu Massacre à tronçonneuse quand il avait 14 ans, et en fait ses parents étaient fans de la nouvelle vague française. Donc quand il a vu ce film-là, il s'est dit ça c'est une forme d'art, c'est vraiment le cinéma qui est une forme d'art. Il se rend compte rétrospectivement que c'était peut-être aussi pour embêter sa mère, et pour voilà. D'autres questions?
Hi. Actually, it's not a question. I just want to tell you that when I was 13, I saw Drive at the theater. That was my first shock. And so now, thanks to you, I'm working in the movie industry. That's thanks to you. Just want to say that. Thank you.
Great, man. I'm glad. Just keep doing it.